Good evening everybody. We're going to be doing something slightly different today. We're going to be taking a look at a selection of Ceratosaurus figures, particularly looking at this collector version here, which is the most recent one. This is from 2018, it's 1/40 scale. Supposedly collector figures are always a little on the large side for that. But really, I'm having a look at Ceratosaurus because I hopefully have something quite special on the way. Fairly imminently, depending. Fingers crossed for that. And I just wanted to have a quick look at these three I have in my collection at the minute, just to give you a bit of an idea about Ceratosaurus and what to expect from Ceratosaurus figures. Now these three figures are quite common, they're by no means definitive. There are other very, very good figures available from both Safari Limited and Batat Terra. The Batat Terra figure is based on the original Batat figure, which was sculpted by Dan LaRusso. It's quite a long time ago now, but it still holds up very well. The new version's a lovely red, white and black figure. These are all available from Everything Dinosaur, which is my go-to place for the vast majority of my figures. Anyway, Ceratosaurus, as you can see here, is depicted in very different ways. They're all very recognisable as Ceratosaurus. They all very much have the features which Ceratosaurus is famous for, which is the horn, the crests, and the row of spines down the back, though these are somewhat artistically done in the rebar version here. Now, Ceratosaurus was considered to be a basal tetaneuron, which means it didn't quite have the stiff tail which characterised all later theropods. It was considered to be quite primitive. Ceratosaurids were quite a diverse bunch. There were herbivorous ceratosaurids and possibly fish-eating ceratosaurids. They're diversified into things like the bellysaurids and the noasaurids. Very interesting creatures. I don't know quite how they're related to the megalosaurids. Megalosaurids are considered to have gone on and evolved into the spinosaurids. I would imagine they came from a similar kind of ancestor to Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus came from an ancestor somewhat akin to Dilophosaurus, the coelophysids, or coelophysoids. This is a particularly beautiful depiction of Dilophosaurus by Papel, based very closely on the sideshow version. Very nicely done, as you can see. Now, there is a sideshow version of Ceratosaurus, but it's a resin figure, it's a very rare figure, they were a limited edition, and they'll set you back quite a lot of money if you can get hold of one. However, Papel, because they like to base the figures on other depictions, based their Cryolophosaurus on the Dino Revolution Cryolophosaurus, but they used the coloration that Sideshow Collectibles Ceratosaurus has. So if you want to pick up something which was potentially related to Ceratosaurus and is very beautifully done, this Papel Cryolophosaurus, you can't really go far past that. It's a very beautiful figure, this, beautifully detailed. Balances perfectly on his feet, but we're not looking at Cryolophosaurus today, so he can go away. Now, these three figures. Ceratosaurus was a swamp animal. It was a contemporary of Torvosaurus, Allosaurus, all the big famous Jurassic sauropods, the likes of Stegosaurus, that kind of thing. But swampy environment is beautifully depicted in this rebar version. This rebar version is somewhat controversial for the artistic license that has been employed in its sculpting. Not entirely sure that any Ceratosaurus remains have scoots like this along the back, though they are beautifully rendered, beautifully sculpted. It's a good chunky figure. It's got sort of long sinuous tail, good thick, chunky, muscular depiction of Ceratosaurus, good length of neck, short slender arms as Ceratosaurus had, fairly short legs as Ceratosaurus had. The skull's instantly recognisable as Ceratosaurus, the lower jaw's perhaps a little thin. There's possibly not quite as many teeth in here as you'd expect. The teeth probably aren't quite as big as you'd expect for Ceratosaurus. But this is a very beautiful figure. The base it comes on is absolutely stunningly designed, and this figure is probably going to become quite rare. I believe that rebar are ceasing production of the more complicated figure, so if you want to pick this one up, I recommend that you do it sooner rather than later. It's really quite good value for the amount of detail you get in the figure, this one. Not a very new figure, it's been out a few years now, but guaranteed to become quite rare. Now, next we have the Ceratosaurus. This figure caused a lot of excitement when it was first unveiled, and it really doesn't disappoint. This is an absolutely stunning little figure, beautifully engineered, as all Papo figures are. In fact, the seams, the way they put the two halves of the body together here, is the seam actually runs in front of the hips and down the fronts of the thighs, so it's well disguised, and then around the underside, so it could almost be a cloaca or something. You know, it's quite well hidden, very cleverly done. They've done the same with the head. They've hidden the seams around the back of the skull. In terms of accuracy, Papo are never the strongest. They often base their figures on artistic depictions. I'm not too sure whether they depicted this on anything I've seen. I haven't seen anything like this. This looks fairly unique. It's got the good slim skull that Ceratosaurus had. It's got the very thick muscular tail, the good thick base that Ceratosaurus had. It's got the short legs. The only thing about it is possibly slightly truncated, and the length and the depth of the skull is possibly a bit extreme. The length of the neck is possibly a little on the short side. The arms are definitely a bit too large and chunky. But really, I mean, the sculpting that's gone into this figure. You can see the close-up detail on the head here. You can even see these little scales. Some of them have got individual points in the middle of them just to give them that bit extra texture and make them look more realistic and more alive. The way this thing's painted, the eye. That wild, staring eye. And the horn, it's good big horn. Ceratosaurus probably had larger horns than what the skull would suggest because they'd have been covered in keratin. And that often makes horns around a third larger than the actual core. So it might be a little bit too close, maybe a bit too far up the skull, but at least it's a good size. And it looks as if it's been chipped, which is quite a nice touch. So this probably most closely resembles skeletal designs I've seen of Ceratosaurus dentalcatus, which was considered to be the largest specimens of Ceratosaurus. Ceratosaurus has 3 species named. That's Ceratosaurus dentalcatus, postulated to be the largest, Magnicornis and Nasicornis, which was the original one discovered. And it was thought to be around 5 to 7 metres in length and up to just under a metric ton in weight, so by no means was it an unsubstantial animal. It would have been a big, powerful predator. The great thick tail, when I was young, people thought maybe it could swing back like a kangaroo and kick out at other ceratosaurids. I remember when I was younger, I think it was Greg Paul suggested there was a great degree of cranial kinesis with Dilophosaurus, so that the skull flexed as it was chewing. I think that's possibly been debunked slightly. Recently, they've considered that this great big deep tail was for swimming, that Ceratosaurus is more aquatic. But again, I think that is a somewhat contentious issue, and we'll perhaps never really know. Often animals do things which are quite surprising, which you wouldn't expect from the adaptations alone. So who knows with Ceratosaurus? It was obviously doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, but we'll probably never know. Now, this Ceratosaurus figure, I was extremely excited when I saw this one unveiled. I thought, wow, they've really nailed Ceratosaurus with that. Unfortunately, the production figure doesn't quite nail up to the catalogue figure. It doesn't quite live up to it, sorry. There's a couple of glaring issues which have already been pointed out with this one. The blunted teeth is severe irritation. I don't know why they've done that. I mean, dinosaur toys are spiky all over. My other half very charmingly and accurately refers to the Mesozoic as Earth's punk rock phase, as everything was covered in spikes and horns, and obviously any dinosaur toy is going to be spiky. So I think some little teeth and a little mouth are the least of any safety worries, but yet they've chosen to blunt the teeth right off. Ceratosaurus's iconic teeth have been cut right down in the production model of this figure, which is very irritating, especially given that in this Carcharodontosaurus figure they did, which is also a deluxe figure at 140 scale, it's got lovely sharp teeth. Beautiful, sharp, finely sculpted teeth. And this beautiful head, which looks somewhat out of place on this big fat body. Oops, sorry, I just knocked the Papo version over there. The body of this figure and the head don't really seem to go together, but you know, that's another issue. But really getting back to the teeth, beautifully sculpted teeth. Horrible blunt teeth. No need for it. Very irritating, especially when you look at the teeth on this fabulous Papo figure. I mean, if you're going to injure yourself on that, you really got to be going some. Never mind. Anyway, apart from that, this figure, the articulated jaw looks like it's been done as an afterthought. It doesn't work, it doesn't function very well. It doesn't look good when it's closed. You've got to end up with this big overbite, big seam. Tongue gets in the way. It just looks like the original prototype was sculpted without an articulated jaw, and it's something they've added at the production phase, and it hasn't worked properly. It has been blended in quite nicely on my figure. I have seen shots of this figure where this section of the throat's not been quite well fitted and really stands out against the rest of the figure. So it's quite good in this one, but they have managed to depict the skull as nice and narrow, as the skull of Ceratosaurus was. Unfortunately, they've carried that narrowness right down the rest of the body. I mean, this thing is incredibly slim and unsubstantial. From the side, it looks deep and heavy, as the animal would have been. From the top or the bottom, you can see there's really very little there. It's very, very narrow and flat. It's a little bit odd. Again, this is a peculiarity. They've gone the opposite direction to what they did with the Carcharodontosaurus, which is very wide across the hips and very thick. So they've gone from one extreme to another there. They did the same with the Beishan Long. It's far too narrow. But criticisms aside, proportionally this is definitely the best of these three figures and holds up pretty well against the other figures I've mentioned, the Batat Terror, the Safari, the Sideshow Collectibles figure. There's also a little figure by Kyoto, which is one of their mini figures, which comes in the sort of green balls, I think, from vending machines. Difficult to get hold of, very nicely done. Again, it's a very chunky figure. This figure perhaps looks the most lively somehow. I don't know quite what it is about it. Collector do manage to imbue a sort of sense of living in their figures, and this one's definitely no exception. It's got the horn, picked out in bright yellow. I know the colour scheme is something of a contentious issue. This very, very vivid, very unnatural, patchy looking, bright face paint. I don't mind it, I've got used to it. I probably will redecorate it a little in time, I think. I don't think I'll keep this. Little touches in the nostril here, see if I can rotate it and have a little look. The nostrils, because they're quite deep, let's see if I can get this to focus here, because they're quite deep, have some of the underlying colour of the body still, which gives the nostrils a sort of nice wet natural look to them. That's quite nicely done. I think it's by accident rather than design, but it does work quite nicely. Detail inside the mouth, again difficult to see. It's quite a big deep high vault to the mouth. It had to be with that articulated jaw. The arms, small and slim as they should be. There is a little claw on this digit here. There's some debate over whether that would have been feasible. The longish neck that Ceratosaurus did have. The skull is perhaps a little elongate on this one, but of the different specimens, they're all different shapes and sizes. You know, animals are different shapes and sizes. There's a lot of natural variation between individuals, so we're not going to worry too much about that. Good, big, deep, thick body, short legs. Feet are perhaps a little bit sparrow-like and light. I mean, like I say, this creature could perhaps get up to just under a metric ton in weight, so the feet probably wouldn't have been little and skinny and chicken-like, but it does look quite nice. Good, big, thick, deep tail. Collector always do a lot of detail on the scales, on the undersides of their figures, and there's always a little cloacal opening there, which is always picked out with a slight dirty look to it, which is a nice touch. They've put osteoderms in the skin, rather like a distant descendant of Ceratosaurus-like creatures Carnotaurus had. Ceratosaurus was found with extra little plates and things separated from the skeleton, but they're assumed to be from Ceratosaurus, and the position in the body is unknown, so what Collector have done here is they've put them in a similar kind of formations to what's often depicted on Carnotaurus. And I'm greatly looking forward to the Carnotaurus model. I don't think that one's got an articulated jaw. Kind of hoping it doesn't. It does look like they've put an articulated jaw on the baryonyx, which again looks like it's been reverse engineered and not very effective. Kind of wish they wouldn't do that. If they were going to do it, you know, dedicate yourself to it, or just don't do it at all, please. Never mind. Again, good long thick deep tail on this one. Some nice musculature in the legs. The paint job is a little uneven, but it's effective. I mean, for the price you get collector figures for, they really are very, very nicely done. And this one is pretty good. Now the next figure I'm going to be reviewing is an unboxing of something fairly large and substantial. But it's very much related to this particular topic, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.